Hey everybody, namaste. Welcome to In the Green Room. And I would like to thank all of you for all the wonderful messages, the wonderful response that we've been receiving for this initiative. And I would also like to thank all the viewers and all of you for taking time to watch this series. And it's been such a wonderful experience for me personally to be interviewing and learn about the lives of all these wonderful musical colleagues of mine, and what a journey each of them have had. And it's truly wonderful that we are able to bring it to all of you through this initiative. And I would also like to thank Jankar from Cincinnati, the organization that has helped bring this to all of you. So I would like to thank them as well. And I would like to thank all the musicians, my colleagues, and all those who have very kindly and graciously been on the show so far, and also the ones who will be coming in the future. And on that note, without further ado, I would like to invite someone who I've had the honor and pleasure of knowing for the last few years very closely. I've had the opportunity to perform with him, not only in India but also the US. And he has been a younger brother to me. And what more than having one of the finest young Sarangi Maestros from India join us in the green room today. What a lineage he belongs to. He's the grandson of one of the greatest legends of Sarangi, Pandit Ramnarayan ji, who revolutionized Sarangi playing for almost last 80 years. I mean, and what contribution to Indian classical music. Words fall short of to be able to describe that. And I would when Harsh Bhai joins us, I would rather have him talk about it. And also, he's the son of Sarod legend Pandit Brijnarayan ji. So I can't even imagine what he must have gone through with all his musical training and all the sanskar and all the talim for years now, and it all comes to him in his genes. And I'm very fortunate and thankful to him that he's going to be joining us today. On that note, I would like to go ahead and welcome uh, Harsh Narayan Bhai to our show. Just give me a minute to ensure that he is with us on the show. And all the settings are fine. I'm not a Zoom expert, but I'm trying to get there. So, Harsh Bhai, most welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. It's such an honor. बहुत namaskar आपको. It's a great privilege to have you here with us, and we're really looking forward to this conversation with you.
Namaste Aditya Bhai and namaste to all of you. And first of all, I would like to thank you, Aditya Bhai, for inviting me to this wonderful show that you've been hosting. And it's an honor and privilege to be here, speaking with you, sharing my musical journey with you and all our viewers today.
Most welcome. It's an honor. It's an honor, Harsh Bhai. So I would let you, run the show. It's all up to you to, whatever you want to share. Of course, I would like if you could share a little bit about the instrument sarangi. We do have a lot of viewers. Of course, most of the people do know about the sarangi, but we have an international audience as well, which probably would, want to know about the structure and how the sarangi is made. So if you could share a little bit of that and then present whatever you have planned for us.
Absolutely, Aditya Bhai. And like you said, for I'm sure so many viewers know about the instrument, but for the benefit of our viewers who are probably seeing the instrument for the first time, it's one of the oldest and the most traditional instruments of India, and it is the original board instrument of India. And the name Sarangi comes from a word Sarangi. Sarangi means 100 musical colors. So that's how the name for this instrument is derived. As far as its structure is concerned, it's carved out of a single piece of wood. Uh, Tun wood is what we call in Hindi, and it's Indian rosewood for our foreign viewers. And the bottom portion, the soundboard, is hollow, and it's covered with goat skin. And on top of that is a leather patch on which the bridge rests, and all the strings run through that. It has 40 strings in all. There are three main playing strings made of gut, and there are 36, 37 sympathetic strings, which are steel strings and which are responsible for the deep resonance. On top of that is a leather. Um, I will keep talking more about that in detail, but I thought let me begin with some music so that all our audience has some sense of what this instrument is and how it sounds. So I'm going to present a traditional rag Eman, and within that a short alap, and then a composition that I've learned from my grandfather Pandit Ram Narayan ji in 10 beat rhythm cycle Jhaptan.
Wonderful.
So some alap tans and a composition in Jhaptan.
Wonderful.
Is the sound coming okay, Aditya bhai? It's a very beautiful composition in Japtal.
क्या बात है हर्ष भाई.
Thank you.
Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Thank you
You,
very much.
you're truly carrying forward the legacy.
I'm trying my best, and I've been very fortunate to have gurus like my grandfather Pandit Ram Narayan ji, my father Pandit Brij Narayan ji, and I'm trying my best to do justice to whatever they have taught me. And this is a very special composition. It's one of my most favorite compositions that I've learned from my Dadaji, and I am very happy to present that in front of all of you today.
Thank you so much for presenting it to us. It's just fabulous, incredible.
Thank
Uh,
you.
do you plan to present anything else? Do you have anything on mind, or how would you like to?
Well, perhaps we can have some conversation, some discussion, and
Sure,
then I can maybe play something else later on.
sure. Wonderful. Well, moving on, I would like to, I mean, all of us would like to know, growing to be born, first of all, in such a family, where two giants, because um, Pandit Ram Narayan ji and Pandit Brij Narayan ji are one of the greatest musicians of India, and to be born into this family. Um, when did it dawn upon you, where you've taken birth, I mean, when did you realize, oh my God, this is where I took birth. So, God has been kind. So how was your childhood? I mean, I would let you just walk us through that.
Absolutely, absolutely, Abhijit. And needless to say, it's such a privilege and the Almighty's blessings that I've been born in such a family. And well, my childhood, like any other child, I would be going to school, and I would come back. And in school, my friends would talk about like my father going to office and doing this and doing that. But I would never see my father or grandfather go to an office. And music was all they have done all their life. So I somewhere knew that this is what I have to do in my life too. And mainly as a child, my father was touring a lot during that time. He was constantly traveling. And my grandfather had kind of slowed down a little bit. He was taking it easy on his touring. So as soon as I would return from my school, I would see him practicing. So I would be back home by about quarter to 4 in the evening, and 4 o'clock was his riyaz time, which is still date it is in the evening.
Wow.
So I would come back home and I would see my grandfather practicing, and then I would be playing around at the house. But at that 1.5 hour, if any students were coming over, religiously he would do that every day. And that's how in my childhood I heard the Sarangi more. And I started feeling very attracted towards the instrument. Especially when I would see my grandfather play it, because the way he would make it sound is everyone knows about that. And that's how I got drawn to the sarangi. And well, today I feel very lucky about it, that whatever I could imbibe, whatever I could learn, I'm still learning, and I'm here in front of all of you today.
So amazing. So did the initial training, talim with Dadaji start in your childhood, or were you allowed to not learn for a few years and just enjoy your childhood? Or I mean, how was it like? I mean, of course, the sanskar, and you kept listening to his music every day at home. But was
Right.
there, were you told to start learning, or did it, just automatically happen? How was that beginning?
Well, in our family, I would say that music is never forced onto anybody. Uh, even with my father picking up the sarod, so many people ask him that your father is a legendary sarangi player. How come you have picked up the sarod? But even when my father picked up the sarod, that was never a discussion. I mean, because he, as a child, was spending a lot of time with his uncle, Pandit Chaturlalji,
Ji.
tabla maestro. And Pandit Chaturlalji was accompanying Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab a lot, along with the other great instrumentalists. So as a child, he heard the sarod a lot. And when my father said that he would like to learn the sarod, there was no discussion. I mean, he said, "Okay, fine, go ahead and do it." The same thing with me. It was never forced onto me. It was just that I would keep seeing my grandfather, and I got drawn to the sarangi. And one day, after I came back from school, I was 6 years old. I have pictures on my website of that time. And, I told my grandfather that I would like to learn this instrument. And, of course, he was very happy, and he very willingly prepared himself a small sarangi for me. uh, and even that small sarangi was actually taller than me when I started playing it. So, that's how my journey started. And I must also say that, my father, Pandit Narayan ji, also has a very big role to play in me picking up the sarangi, because he was tremendously encouraging. And he never once asked me that, oh, why don't you play the sarod, or why don't you play any other instrument? And immediately he was very happy, and he's been a big support system in that, being a father, being a guru also. So that's how my sarangi training started, with my grandfather and my father. And, well,
Did it,
from there
did it
on,
ever did it ever cross your mind at that time that maybe you want to explore a sarod as well, because you had these two masters at home, but was it ever something you were contemplating, whether I need to pick up a sarangi versus sarod, or what did you go through? Did you ever did that thought ever cross your mind?
actually, somehow when I decided on the sarangi, there were no second thoughts about it for some reason. I mean, the instrument just called me, saying that you must start doing this. And of course, like I, as a child, I heard a lot of sarod also. I would go to my father's concerts, and believe me, the concerts that would happen at that time were like 2.5, 3 hours long. And I remember hearing my father, Pandit Narayan ji, on so many occasions. And once the concert was over, that concert would reverberate in my mind for 3-4 days after the concert. And I was just a child. I was in school,
Mhm.
and that was so inspiring for me. And with all my other friends, and of course, classical music is not something that like everyone wouldn't know about a sarangi and a sarod, like children in the school and in my generation at college. But they would be talking about all sorts of music, but all that would revolve in my mind was my father's concert, and I wondered what that was. And but in spite of that, I never thought of picking up the sarod. There was always sarangi in my mind, and it just came that no, it has to be the sarangi.
Wow, wow. So how did the talim start with Dadaji? I mean, was it one on one? Was it many musicians when they're born to in a family of musicians, most of their childhood they're also studying with either their guru bhais or disciples of their grandfather or father. Many young musicians have been taught and trained by a lot of guru bhai, senior guru bhais of theirs or senior students of their father or grandfather. So did you start one on one with him? How was that?
Yes, most of my lessons that I've had with him have been one-on-one lessons, and I have been so fortunate because he would at most times sit with his sarangi right in front of me and explain things to me. So I really thank him, and I really thank the Almighty that I feel so blessed about this. And then, of course, practice happens with the other students of my grandfather also. A lot of students he has had for vocal music as well, and of course for the sarangi. And Vasanti Shrikhandeji is one of his students who learns the sarangi, and we have been practicing and learning together for over 2 decades. And so practice and talim does happen sometimes together along with other students, but most of the time it has been one-on-one and also one-on-one with my father.
So how would you describe that experience with especially your grandfather, like the actual one on one experience?
Oh
uh,
my God. Although he teaches with a lot of love, but it is always very scary because, like, believe me, even today at the age of 92, he still has his half an hour of practice slot ready every day.
wow.
And that is so inspiring in itself. And even, I mean, that would happen a million times earlier also, but even today when he's practicing and when he's teaching you something, and while you're playing, like you're trying to keep up with him, you're trying to play, and automatically you start realizing your bow is slipping down and you want to keep it on the floor because you cannot keep up with him.
Wow. Wow. Incredible.
So it is a privilege, it is an honor, a blessing to be spending so much time with him right in front of him. Uh, but yes, my talim has been always that way. Most of the time, it has been one-on-one with both my gurus.
Wow. So Harsh, by moving on, was music something you wanted to do as a profession, or was it something that ever crossed your mind to say as a teenager that okay, I'm going to learn my calling is with the with the sarangi, and I'm loving my talim with my grandfather and my father, but I'm not sure whether I want to do this full time, because everybody's seen a lot of hardships and a lot of challenges, especially of the senior generation. They've worked extremely hard to give us all the comfort and that we enjoy as grandchildren. So was that something you were not sure? How did you go about it? I'm sure there were a lot of thoughts that went across about something, whether to pursue this in spite of being from such an illustrious gharana. I'm sure we all go through it at some point of time.
Right, absolutely. And while growing up, while during my school and during my college, I always knew that I would be a musician, a full-time musician. However, I would like to share with all of you, it's a good question that you've asked, that it didn't happen that way. And uh, my grandfather and my father especially, they sat me down and they said that you need to complete your education and you need to have some other experience in life apart from music.
Wow.
So with them, they saying that, and of course I would listen to them, and I completely agree with what they had to say. So I completed my MBA. I have a dual specialization in marketing and finance, and I worked into the corporate world for over a decade. Uh, I
Wonderful.
was lately working with an American company. I had a team that was reporting into me, and everything was set fine. However, that's not my calling. So there came a situation where I had to see if I have to take up another job or I continue as a full-time musician. And then that's when I decided now it's time to take up music as a full-time career. And it's been close to 2 years that I've been a full-time musician, which has allowed me to travel a little more, and that's eased out my schedule. Because even before this, while I was touring the US and some places in Europe, I was at times working during the weekdays. I was working for my office, and during the weekends there would be concerts. So I would be like so stressed, and that definitely wasn't working for me, and I wasn't happy in the corporate environment. So with that, and then there are challenges because I've been fortunate that most of my leaders have been very supportive during my corporate career. But then there are always a few who don't want you around because you're a musician. Some perceptions are built. So keeping I kept fighting all of that, but then finally I said, "That's it. I've had enough, and I'm a full-time artist now." So, but that it was a good experience. I'm very happy because it has sort of made me mentally sound also. Financially, it's a big relief for working with a corporate. And now there's enough where I can sit back, enjoy my music, enjoy my performing, and play around more often. So, in a way, it helps tremendously.
Wow, wow. It's so wonderful to know your background, your academic background as well. Not many people are aware of all that musicians really do in the background to actually you come to a point when we say that okay, this is what I want to do full time. You know.
Right, absolutely.
There are so many challenges that one goes through before one can really take a decision to say, okay, I'm going to do music full time. Uh, uh,
Absolutely.
and there has been a lot of talk about it's always easier for kids who are born to musicians to pursue this. There's a lot of conversation nowadays. It's even more because of whatever has recently happened.
True.
So there's a lot of talk about it, so much easier. But I always feel that I mean it's difficult for anybody, regardless. Whether you are of course lot of things are streamlined when you are born a family, maybe with regards to talim, regards to training, regards to accessibility to the guru. All that is much easier, right? And but finally one has to prove themselves.
Absolutely, one has to prove themselves, and when they get out there, their lineage is not going to follow on stage. Apart just from the name, your work will eventually, speak for itself. And also, like with my family, they have stayed away from the politics, which every industry would have, and they have been very clear that you have to make your own mark. So there's not been any unnecessary pushing, just because there's a lineage. They have, given me the freedom to go out, speak to people and make a career out of without, in a way, without their support. I mean, of course, their support is there in a big way, but in a way, like business-wise, without their support. So, and I completely agree with them because everyone has to, through their work, earn their name, earn their livelihood. So I completely agree with their thought process.
So How was your own Riyaz like? I mean, you managed a corporate job. You took a lot of academic qualifications, did your MBA. Uh, so many, you diversified, in so many ways. So how was your own Riyaz like? Was there any pressure to do a lot of Riyaz? Because of course, the baggage of being, somebody's grandson, and yeah, so much responsibilities, maybe not from the family members, but the audience members. The audience has this expectation that, oh, Harsh was born to this family, and now he has to live up to that.
Right.
So maybe the family doesn't impose those pressures, but audience definitely does have those expectations that, being Harsh Narayan, you have to live up to the name. So was that very tricky? Was that something you had to deal with? And did that inspire your Riyaz, or did that affect your Riyaz? I mean, what did you go through?
Well, in a way, it has always inspired my Riyaz, because there's some pressure on you, which is always good. It depends on the way you take it. So it can prove to be very healthy if you take it in a positive way and do your Riyaz. But like how you said, because I've had I've done a decent amount of study, and I have also worked. But the Riyaz factor is something, if you love, you will always find time to do it. And Sarangi and Riaz was one of those things. And and automatically I would do Riaz, because as I started learning and maybe just started performing at the age of 15, 16. At that time I was accompanying my grandfather for all his concerts, and I was fortunate enough to have 3 tours with him to Europe at the age of
How
16.
was that experience? Maybe we can talk about that later. Sharing the stage with him at 15. We can talk about it a little later, but I would like you to go ahead with the challenges, or the Riyaz inspiration.
Right, right. And you know, like getting on stage with someone like him, someone of his caliber, that automatically puts you in pressure. Then, to be honest, I'm not thinking of what the audience is going to think. I'm thinking of what he's going to think. What's going to happen to me when I get on stage with him. So, that in a way has motivated me tremendously. And of course, audience views are respected too, and they have to be looked into too. But my motivation point at that time was just that if I have to get on stage with him, I have to be spot on, or else I've had it. So, and also my riyaz, I've never done really long hours of riyaz, and I'll explain why. Is because of the talim that I've received from Dadaji. He's saying you really don't need all the time. You don't need to have 10, 12, 15 hours of practice. There was a time when he did it himself, but he says that even if you do about 2 hours of practice applying your mind, that is more than enough. And during my studying days and during my working days, that's the principle I follow: about 1.5, 2 hours of practice every day, but applying yourself. And that's something that has helped me tremendously. So it's never been the case that ek taan le li, or you take one palta and you're playing it continuously for 4 hours without with your mind being somewhere else. You know, uh, if I'm practicing, oh, I have to send that email, I have to send that to my boss. That's never happened. So if I'm practicing for about 1.5 or 2 hours, I would completely focus. And this is the exact training that I've received from my grandfather, which has really worked very well for me so far.
Wow. Yeah. So, moving on, or on the similar lines, if you could, was there, were you always, intimidated by the fact that you had to share the stage with him? And right, like you said, what is he going to say once I'm on stage with him? Or rather, were you concerned about what he's going to say after the concert is over? You know?
Like, I would be, of course, concerned. And believe me, he's never been strict. as a guru.
That's what I wanted to ask you. I mean, was he a strict guru? I mean, being a grandfather is different, and being a guru is different, right?
It's
Uh,
different. But he's been a very, very lenient guru. He's never beat me. He's of course scolded me a few times, but he's been a very lenient guru. But you know, it was like my responsibility to him to do well. That's what would give me the pressure, you know. And like even like before getting on stage, even after the concert, I would be afraid because he has invested so much time in giving his knowledge and training. So I would hate it to disappoint him, you know. So although he's been a very lenient teacher, but it was more of my nature and my you know it's like respect for from me to my guru. That's what I felt always the pressure about.
wow, amazing. And how was it like, studying with your father? I mean, did he sing? Did he, sing and teach you, or did he play the sarod and you were trying to emulate that on the sarangi? How was that connect? Was
With
he
my father,
was he a strict father?
he is a strict father, I would say, but of course a very loving father. And you know, he's also taught me with a lot of love. But he scolded me more than my grandfather. I would say that. But he's a lot of the rhythmic things, जो ताल की बातें हैं, that I do, I have learned from him. And to answer your question, like he's taught me both by singing and also by demonstrating it on the sarod. And then I would make little changes that that would suit me and the sarangi. But the basic talim I've received from him, uh, with him singing and playing the sarod.
Talking about some technical aspects, Harsh, by for people who don't know, for laymen, about Dadaji's contribution to the sarangi has been unparalleled, right? I mean,
Right.
it's been unprecedented, and he was one of the greatest giants of Indian classical music who actually brought sarangi from an accompanying instrument to a solo instrument. You know,
Right.
what were some of his, technique or technicalities that if you could share with the viewers, some of his very distinct techniques or something that he innovated, which allowed the instrument from being just an accompanying instrument to a solo instrument. I've heard of his bowing technique being something that was not done before.
Absolutely.
So could you shed some light on something like that with us?
Right, absolutely, and I'm so happy that you have brought up this subject because it's been very unfortunate that for the sarangi it has always remained in the background when actually it has always deserved to be in the forefront of all instruments and deserve that respect. However, and I have always heard these things right from my childhood. That sarangi is a very difficult instrument. Oh my God, you're learning a sarangi. It's a very difficult instrument. And in fact, I heard it in one of the live conversations very recently, and I was waiting to see that how do they describe it as a difficult instrument. I mean, what's the reason? And the same, I heard the same thing that I've been hearing for years, and probably these talks have been going on for centuries. That it is very difficult to master, and it is very painful on the fingers. But then I think that which instrument is actually easy?
Correct. Absolutely.
I've seen my father playing the sarod. He's played like if he has a long riyas session or like a concert. I've seen his fingers sore and almost bleeding and swollen. It's the same case with sitar. I'm sure it's the same case with tabla. So which instrument does not really, cause some pain to your fingers, and which instrument is easy to master?
Absolutely.
So, this perception for the sarangi has been going on for a number of years, which has been very, very unfortunate. And although I'm very happy today that there are so many people playing the sarangi, and I humbly request all my sarangi player brothers and sisters out there to break this perception and not to speak about the sarangi in that way. What makes the sarangi a difficult instrument is actually the perception and not its riyaz or its
Technique.
uh, or its technique. It's the perception of the people that has made it a difficult instrument. And I'm very happy because I'm getting the opportunity to share these thoughts of mine with all of you. And I request all my sarangi player brothers, sisters, and all other musicians to please keep this in mind and start viewing the sarangi in a different way, which my grandfather started doing right from the 1940s, actually.
Wow.
Uh, and now I would take a few minutes to speak about his contribution because uh, we all know Sarangi has always remained in the background. It's been to places where it's not been. But that said, what I mean is to be used with dancing girls as an accompanying instrument. So, the image has never been good for the Sarangi. But and my grandfather, he was at that time in the 1940s and 50s, he was accompanying some of the greatest vocalists of our country, Pandit Tumkarnath Thakur, Pandit Krishnaraj Shankar Pandit ji,
Wow.
and these artists were very very encouraging. They really tremendously encouraged my grandfather as an accompanist. But due to age, they started slowing down and started performing less frequently. Uh, and then my grandfather, he started singing with a new lot of vocalists, and it started becoming like he had to really fight for a chance to say what he really wanted to say on the instrument. And that's when he said, I must forget all this and start playing it as a solo classical instrument.
Wow.
And believe me, his first experience was not a very good one. He was asked to leave the stage while performing.
Oh my God.
The, and it was in Brij Narayanji's conference, I still remember, not my father. Uh, he was an organizer. And my grandfather was, of course, very, he was heartbroken. But he never gave up. He started having smaller concerts. He built his audience. And a year later, he played in the same conference for a year and a half, for an hour and a half. And
Wow.
and then in the year 1950, HMV recorded his 3-minute recordings, which are masterpieces. And they started broadcasting that on All India Radio. And in the 50s, radio was a very, very big medium. That's
It's
how
like it was like Netflix today.
Netflix today, right? So, and that's how people started seeing Sarangi in a different way. It's being played solo. Uh, and then in the year 1951, his master's voice and record company released his long playing record in which he played Komal Rishabh Asavri and this. And that was one of the first long playing records India produced after independence. And that was one was with my
Wow.
grandfather.
Wow.
After that, he started touring Europe from 1960 onwards, and there he met other great bowed instrumentalists, violinists like Yehudi Menuhin, Rostropovich, cello, and having conversations with them and playing concerts before and after them, it gave him a totally different perspective on how the sarangi should be, um, performed. And like how he has always said, solo sarangi is a job of a specialist. It's not the training that you need is that of a specialist and not of that of an accompanist. So I've been fortunate to have that experience from him and learn from him. But all these things, all these incidences that I narrated, that changed the face of the sarangi altogether.
Absolutely.
And he's contributed tremendously in the Bollywood film industry.
I was
Uh,
going to come to that. Yes, I was. But before that, Harshbhai, can you demonstrate, the bowing technique, that he introduced everybody.
Right, absolutely. Like with him, Uh, uh, so for him, bowing number one, he always has emphasized while you're practicing your scale, you always use the full length of your bow. There never has to be half bowing. Right?
Wow.
You're either bowing from here or the middle. So if you're playing, if you're practicing your sargam, your paltas, always you always use a full length
क्या बात है, क्या
and
बात
never full bow. That's the number one rule.
है। आहा, आहा, आहा। वाह। फिर से एक बार, क्या बात है, क्या सोच है, हाँ? आहा।
That's number one. And then bowing as a discipline. Like for example, if we have to take one tan, which is so this has to come in one bow, which is starting from right in the beginning till the end. Now, if I start my bow from somewhere in between, I will never be able to finish the tan in one bow. So I have to make sure that I start right here.
वाह, वाह,
This is
वाह।
one bow. Now, if I have to break it in two bows,
क्या बात है, वाह,
three bows, four bows.
वाह, क्या,
So, just a demonstration, and this is like one of the small things that he's taught us. And there are so many multiple small nuances that he's always spoken about as far as your bowing is concerned, as far as your right hand is concerned. So, this bowing has been a very important part of our talim, our learnings. Another thing, and everyone would already knows that his tonal quality being extremely unique. Like within the first 5 seconds, you would know that this is Pandit Ram Narayan.
correct.
Uh, and of course, I've heard a lot of discussion about tonal quality, and lately, especially about the Sarangi. But it is not simply, the balance of your left and right hand, gives a fine tonal quality, or it doesn't depend on the quality of the strings that you're using. It's not about expensive bows that you can have made in Europe or America. It's more about these fine nuances which I just played and demonstrated.
Yep.
And believe me, it was if it was as easy as buying good bows and expensive strings, tonal quality would have been a very very easy subject and not worth speaking about. But the beauty of it is till you don't come to him, till you don't understand how this instrument works for it to be sounding that way, no one's going to ever get it.
True, true, absolutely true. And I think tone is something that sets apart. I mean, that's the individuality of an artist, right? That's who he or she is. It's complete reflection of one's expression, that tone. And all these great masters in their respective instruments have, and first and foremost, have worked on the tonal quality. You know,
Absolutely, absolutely.
be it tabla, be it sarangi, be it santur, be it any sitar. It's the tone or the ru, the soul that comes out from that tone. That touches one's heart, that soul. I think that is something that is something that you can define and say, okay, this was Pandit Ramnarayan ji, this was Ustad Allah Rakha Khan Sahab. That's what that's what touches us, the tone.
Right. True. So, I mean, this was a small demonstration of, his training style, his technique. And there are n number of things which I can speak about, but, the subject could just get unnecessarily too long. But, I would like everyone to ponder on these things. It's not just about what strings you put on, not about the bow. It's a lot more than that, developing a tonal quality for the instrument. And I've been fortunate enough to spend so much time with my grandfather that I could learn that from him, and it's just been such a privilege.
We briefly touched upon this, subject that, Panditji's contribution to Bollywood. Uh,
Right. Yes.
was, which was absolutely unparalleled and, revolutionized, the recording realm, you
Right.
know, because before that, I don't think anybody did what he did, even with regards to Bollywood,
Right.
Um, would you like to enlighten us about some of the prominent works of his in Bollywood, because this must have happened 50, 60 years ago. We were probably not even born, and I think this generation should be aware of the fact that he was the pioneer. I mean, he was the one who established the base for everybody today to even make a living out of that.
Absolutely. Certainly.
So many great Sarangi maestros and legends made a livelihood from playing in Bollywood before they came on stage, in the presence of the audience. But before that, I don't think anybody even dared to do that.
Absolutely not. And one of his greatest contributions, like, is introducing the sarangi into Bollywood film music. And over the years, like right from the 50s till perhaps till the early 70s, he spent time in the industry playing thousands and thousands of songs. And the way he's played sarangi, even otherwise, but also in Bollywood film, that had never happened before, like how you said, and that probably will never happen again, because just his sheer musical genius comes out even in the numerous songs that he's played. And can you imagine, you have space of just probably 2 seconds, 1.5, 2 seconds, and 3 seconds. The way he fits some things in between is absolute. It's a sign of a genius, and
Absolutely.
uh, it's just not his technical brilliance, but his musical genius that has allowed him to actually do that. Here, another thing, when people talk, and a lot of people, I'm sure Aditya Bhai, you have heard it too. So sarangi, बहुत sad instrument है. It's a very sad instrument, as it's always called as.
Unfortunately, I would like to interrupt. Unfortunately, growing up as a child, even before I, knew that music is going to be my profession. I mean, echoing the same sentiments that you just did, that sarangi is a sad instrument. But I think a lot to be, is to be. I think, anytime a politician died back in the day,
Yeah,
on Doordarshan, you had somebody come and play sarangi
right. Yes,
as a
absolutely.
as a sign of mourning. That's what I saw myself growing up.
No, and,
As a,
and that's
as a kid.
that's when I spoke about it earlier with about these perceptions. So what's made the instrument is difficult is not its gaining its technical mastery or that it hurts the fingers. It's these kind of perceptions that has made the sarangi difficult. But here again with my grandfather, when he
But
was,
and there would be no accompaniment, Harshbhai.
yes,
When the sarangi player played solo, prime minister died or some prominent leader died, there would be one sarangi artist on TV playing by themselves. No
that's right,
tabla, no nothing. Why no tabla? Also because it's mourning. I mean, I can't, I mean, comprehend that. But you know,
right, right.
in
No,
fact,
it has been in a very unfortunate situation, the sarangi. But here again, with my grandfather, where I was actually coming to is when he's played in Bollywood songs. So he's played happy songs, he's played romantic songs, he's played peppy songs, he's played kawalis. You name the genre and he's played it. And even when he's played romantic songs, when he's played the sarangi, it has never sounded sad. It has actually sounded romantic. Like
uh,
one of my favorite songs, Divana Hua Badal, sung by Mohammed Rafi ji. And towards the end, of course, my grandfather's playing throughout the song, but towards the end of the song, and I would request all our audience to go and listen to it if they haven't yet.
are
He's
you
playing,
are you comfortable? Are you comfortable playing a few lines of that? Only if you are.
I wouldn't dare. Especially if I'm talking about him, then I wouldn't dare playing it. So Aditya Bhai, when what I was saying is when he plays that piece, it sounds so romantic. It sounds so good, like a peppy song that he kahin pe nigahein, kahin pe nishana. In the beginning and in between, he's playing pieces, and they sound really happy. They sound upbeat. And ek bar, it's like one side you're saying it's an instrument of 100 colors, and then one side you're saying it's a sad instrument. It's not in sync. And with my grandfather's tremendous work that he's not only done in the Bollywood music, but also in his concerts, he's proved that. So it's a humble request that people must change this perception.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm in complete agreement with that, and I hope this generation, makes all the effort, led by young musicians like you to ensure that this whole thing, the whole perception about Sarangi does change in the years to come. On that note, can I request you to perform something for us that you would like to present? Something of Dadaji's or your own or your father's or whatever.
Definitely. Maybe I can take a few minutes, and this one piece is very special to my heart, and I've been fortunate to have been receiving training from grandfather on this. Also, my father is a Ragmala in Mishra Piru,
Wow, wow. Kya
and within that, I'll play a composition based in Teen Tal. Again, it's my grandfather's composition, and I would like to present some very traditional tans in that composition. So I request all of you to forgive me for my mistakes, and whatever good is theirs comes from my grandfather. The bad is for me. So, uh, Rag Vishwa Pilu, Rag Mala.
Battery 80%. Connected to iPhone.
Ah. हाँ हाँ हाँ, क्या बात है, वाह वाह। वाह। हाँ, Ah, ah, ah. क्या बात है, क्या बात है हर्ष भाई, क्या बात है. Amazing, amazing,
Thank you.
absolutely incredible. I mean, just words fall short of the feeling I can express after listening to such wonderful rendition, and so amazing. I mean, on that note, I would like to thank you on behalf of all our viewers, Jhankar from Cincinnati, and everyone for your time, for your effort, for your wonderful conversation, for the wonderful insights about not only your family, but the instrument also, and the journey, and everything. It's been so wonderful to have you on the show, and I'm sure everybody has had such a great time watching you, listening to you. And again, I would like to thank you so much, Harsh Bhai, on behalf of everyone for joining. We are truly, truly thank you, and for this. And our Shashtang Pranam to Pandit Ji, your grandfather and your father, and also to you and to everyone at home. And please stay safe during the lockdown, and please take care. And
Thank you.
we all pray and hope that you continue in the service of music and enlighten everybody for decades to come, and carry forward this great legacy ahead.
Thank you very much, Aditya Bhai, and I would like to thank you so much for inviting me on this wonderful show, and also special thanks to Jhankar for having, which has given me an opportunity to come and speak about the Sarangi, about myself and my family and my training. I really appreciate this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I would like to thank all the audience members again for joining us. And we will, see you next Saturday again with a new guest. Stay tuned, and keep supporting this initiative. You know what a beautiful experience this is to be talking to all these wonderful, incredible musicians. So keep supporting it, and we will stay safe. And we will see you next Saturday, same time, same place. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, everyone.